I have an absolute mountain of work to get done, but as I was sitting down to edit tonight, I remembered that I had gotten a Jake Frew notification earlier that day, and I just straight up don't miss Jake Frew videos. But as soon as I started watching this video, I knew right away, oh, we definitely gotta break this one down. Jake, you editing ninja, you've done it again. This is such a good video, and I'm not gonna lie, it's a relatively simple video, but there's still so much to learn here, and we got to break it down. If you don't know Jake's style in general, he's a pretty slow, methodical, lots of great feelings and very chill sort of vibe to his edits, but just because they're a little bit more relaxed, which we'll look at, there's still so many great things going on here editing wise, so let's get right into it. But of course, before we get too deep, we got to look at the editing stats. Let's look at how long this video is and how many cuts we're dealing with. For starters, this video is 8 minutes and 43 seconds, and when we open up our scene cut detection tool and do auto scene detect, we get a whopping When this was done, we found that there was 82 cuts. Divide 523 by 82, and we are getting roughly 1 cut every 6 seconds on average. Now, this is a YouTube Talking Heads video, so there's not really too much to look into here, but it does show that Jake is a much slower paced editor, which we love. Now, guys, that we've looked at that, let's just dive straight into the video. Okay, right away I'm noticing something, and I love this so much. Right away I am seeing that Jake is using a 4:3 aspect ratio. Now, if you don't know what that means, it's just the ratio in which you film the video. Now, 1920 by 1080 is your standard 16:9 aspect ratio. That's what most TVs are. That's just kind of the default thing. 4:3 is an aspect ratio that is a lot more narrow. It's what all of, us old millennials grew up watching TV when we were kids. It's what our parents' TVs looked like. That is what actually TV used to look like before it went to 16:9. And another aspect ratio you probably are familiar with is 235:1. It's the widescreen cinema format. It's what most movies are in, which is why you get those black bars on the top and bottom versus the side like we're seeing here. But the reason I love this choice so much is because this whole video is about putting yourself in a box. There was in the thumbnail, he's literally in a box. It's about giving yourself constraints to be creative, which is just hilarious, Jake. But I love that even within the aspect ratio, we're seeing that decision represented. Instead of doing a wider aspect ratio, we've got a nice tight aspect ratio, which is not a perfect square box, but it's pretty close. It's a lot tighter, and it really feels way more narrow. So let's keep watching. I think it's a great choice.
Listen, unless you want us to detonate the 50 pounds of C4 strapped to your band.
Jake, you been going to acting classes, dude? This is good stuff.
To make sure it's the kind with...
I'm not 100% sure if this is the music or the sound design or both. I think it is the sound design, but these really high-pitched whines right now, this ambient room tone that is being used, this is all sound design, right? Guys, this is stuff that you got to think about when you watch these videos. This shot would not have the weight that it has right now. It wouldn't have that sense of, the mullet on the back of our heads getting kind of raised and scared. It's because we've got the audio really sending that message with these high-pitched whines, these, ambient sounds that are really putting us on the edge, making us feel nervous. And execution is great. Great choice on sound design there. First of all, this shot of the shopping cart. Oh, dude, that's so good. So clever. The framing is perfect. Gosh, I love how grungy and dirty the shopping cart is. It doesn't look nice. He didn't, pick... The shot is just so good. The composition is, nice and center framed. He's using like a friction arm. I've got one up here, but I can't move it. He's mounting his camera right up to the bottom of that shopping cart. This has nothing to do with editing. This is just cool cinematography, but this is cool. What does have to do with editing, though, is the way that he did guess what? Jake gets to bring it up again. J-cut into this shot was really fantastic. So if you pay attention closely, as he starts to leave the car, the sound of the grocery cart wheel happens well before we see the grocery cart. There's the grocery cart. Guys, we talk about this to the nth degree. I'm always looking for places to bring it up because it truly is a cinematic technique. If you are an editor, this is a technique to make your videos cinematic. Where can you use J-cuts to have these super nice transitions? This one right here, study it. Jake crushed it with that J-cut. So good. Let's keep watching. Love the music in the background, great choice. Okay, this section right here with the mayonnaise, this is a perfect example of, I would call it intuitive rhythmic editing. Like, it's not necessarily something that is formulaic or can be taught, but I mean, when you look at stuff like this, like fill your brain with this type of execution, because this is great execution, but I love the choice here to have this wide establishing shot of the mayonnaise, and it's not a quick shot. We sit on it, we really soak in just how many different freaking choices of mayonnaise there are in this shot. Then we get to this and we cut to him, we cut to a tight shot of the mayonnaise, we cut back to him, tight shot of the mayonnaise, him, tight shot of another set type of mayonnaise, and then him, and we breathe, and then we get the title sequence there. That is just textbook rhythmic editing, where we start with something that really shows us what we need to see, and then we really go back and forth and pick up the pace, which again, as a viewer, in our minds, this just sort of kind of gets us more and more on edge. We're kind of like, oh my gosh, here's another one, here's another one, here's another one. Like, we saw all of that, and then we're reiterating that point through editing with these tight shots. Jake crushed it on this sequence. Is it editing related? Of course, we got to do text. Jake, the text you did here looks so good. I love the thicker choice on the bottom, the thinner text on top. It's just really well balanced, and I love this almost Stranger Things kind of look that we've got here with, again, it kind of has almost like a old TV kind of outline going on with the text. This is a really cool title. When we go from the title sequence to part one, first of all, again, another great example of just like the text is so clean, so simple. He's got some glow on it. We're really getting those Jake Frew vibes, which again, we're all about learning on this channel. He's using some kind of glow effect on his text. He's using little particle overlays, grain overlays, something like that to really kind of add that character and that depth, where it's not just clean with, text in black. We've got a little bit of modeling and film grain going on, as well as the text glowing, and great stuff.
In filmmaking,
I feel like we need a soundbite for every time I'm like, there's a great J-cut. There's a great J-cut. Editor Jake, can you turn that into something? I don't know. But again, this is just another great example of, even though the title sequence is still here, bringing in his voice just makes the transition into the next part so clean, so simple. If you did just that hard cut from this to that, it's so much jerkier, which again, on YouTube, we give a ton of grace for that type of editing. This just is what makes Jake special, is he's in YouTube making a YouTube video, right? But he's bringing cinematic movie editing to a Talking Heads video. And then he's talking, he's being Jake, doing a great job. And then we get to our first B-roll sequence with the clothes. Now, this is something that Zach Mayfield brought up in our episode. I'll throw that up here. You guys should definitely go give that a listen. It's a fantastic episode. He used to edit for Matt D'Avella, and Matt D'Avella taught him this secret on B-roll of, when you show B-roll, try to create a little mini story. Now, the way Jake did this is we have the opening shot of just the hangers, which I think is a really good choice. And then that's not the only shot, right? It's not just a one-shot insert that kind of interrupts. We also get the shot of him looking through the clothes. We're building a little mini story here. And then we get another, again, shot of those hangers of picking one of the clothing items. So we've talked about this before on the guest show, but this is just an example of that in the wild. And there's another example of this later on. Call it good editing, call it good writing. Jake has two hilarious moments in this video that are worth talking about. This next B-roll section is another good example of B-roll adding a little mini story, but also it's just so funny, man. He's talking about like science and, the greatest discoveries happening in the craziest of, or in the most controlled of environments. But then we get him filling up a beaker, putting in little drops of, I think, plant food, which isn't totally clear at this point. And then that cuts to him watering his plant. And I just love, like, again, like the contrast editing is probably the word for it, or like the ironic editing. I don't even know exactly what you would call this, but just the humor of, I'm talking about science, here's something that could be scientific. Like this could absolutely be a B-roll shot from like a stock footage site for science if you typed it in, but then it's just him getting ready to water his plants. And again, it just, first of all, it just looks so good. He is so good at it. Clever storytelling, clever editing. The cuts here are really well paced. This is definitely another one of those sequences where like really paying attention to what he shows in this sequence and where he makes those cuts. Things that don't need to get drug out. Show the action in each shot and only hold it for certain effects if necessary, and Jake's crushing it here. And I know we should have talked about it at the beginning, but I just gotta say it, like the writing of the opening skit, like editing and writing, and you know, when it comes to YouTube, it's all intertwined, and the fact that he wrote this idea of getting threatened to need mayonnaise and then not having the final piece of information that he needed to know which mayonnaise he needed to get, and then going to the store and there's 1,000 choices for mayonnaise. The decision fatigue skit here at the beginning is so clever. It's so well edited and it's so well written. And again, there's not really anything specifically editing I wanted to say with this comment other than just like, guys, writing and editing are very much intertwined in this space, and focusing on good writing can make for some really fantastic edits. I mean, this opening sequence is why I wanted to break down this video, because it's just so good and it's honestly hilarious. But anyways, guys, I think that's all I wanted to talk about for editing specific stuff with this video. Again, Jake is fantastic. Jake, if for whatever reason you're watching this video, dude, keep crushing it. Like, this is classic, just textbook fantastic editing, and just keep doing what you're doing. But guys, don't forget, as always on this channel, we are about all things editing, so go check out one of these other videos that is about editing, and I will catch you guys in the next video. Thank you.